The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests, and are not those of Pesmo Radio, its employees or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements of any radio show programs or products mentioned on air, on our website, social media accounts and marketing materials. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to Pesmo Radio, its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing Pesmo Radio.
Are you a songwriter? Are you looking to turn your songwriting passion into a full-time gig? Whether you are just at the start of your songwriting journey or a seasoned industry professional, this show is made for you. Welcome to the Songwriter Show, bringing together songwriting news, interviews, and community. Now, welcome your host, Sarantos.
Thank you for tuning in, and welcome back to the Songwriter Show. I'm your host, Sarantos, a solo music artist who's been writing lyrics for as long as I can remember. Words are very important to me, and that's why I'm thrilled to host this show for you every Tuesday evening. I strongly believe that every song is a story. The Songwriter Show is broadcast live on #1 ranked Pesmo Radio and has listeners in all 206 countries in the world and every state in the U.S. The station is also licensed with ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, and Sound Exchange with partnerships throughout the music industry, including iHeartRadio with exposure to over 300 million listeners. Tonight's first guest is Jason. I'm very excited to have Jason on the show tonight. Jason Davis has spent his entire 2-decade career in the music industry and worked with many worldwide stars, including Boyz II Men, Sugar Ray, P. Diddy, Alabama, Lone Star, Dolly Parton, among many others. Davis is an entertainment industry executive with a broad range of titles including award-winning songwriter, award-winning author, independent record label president, executive TV producer, entertainment consultant, former senior VP of A&R for Dolly Parton's management company CDK Management, and a serial entrepreneur. He has also secured record deal offers from CEOs from the largest music companies in the world, including Capitol Records, Sony, Interscope, Island, Def Jam, Epic, Atlantic, RCA, and J Records. His career began as a songwriter when he was discovered by Grant Cunningham, the former VP of A&R for Sparrow Records. Davis went on to write a #1 Billboard hit, received several ASCAP Songwriting and Publishing Awards, and was nominated for a Latin Music Award. Davis has also co-founded other cutting-edge entertainment companies such as Radar Label Group, Jimmy Eat World, Plain White Tees, Neon Trees, The Unlikely Candidates, 117, Awaken Records, and Care for Kids. He is also co-president and partner of booking agency Higher Level Agency.
And now, welcome this week's special guest.
Welcome to the Songwriter Show. How are you doing tonight, Jason?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're very welcome, my friend. So tell us a little bit about how you got started in this crazy business here.
I had been writing songs since I was, a kid. First band I tried to put together, I was 5 or 6 years old. I think the first song I wrote, I was 5. Got more serious about it in middle school years and always had bands, middle school, high school. And even after high school, just always kept writing songs. Writing songs was really my passion, my hobby, and I would probably record 2 to 4 songs a year with friends who had little recording setups at their parents' house or whatever. And just over 10 years or so of doing it consistently, writing 30, 40 songs a year and recording 2 or 4 a year, finally got good at it. And one of my songs just started getting shared by people and landed on the desk of a record label, and just got a random phone call one day that a record label was interested in a song I had written for one of their artists. And that was the door really cracking open to the industry. And then right around that time too, and that song did very well. That song ended up, being a #1 hit on radio. And And right around the same time, a friend of mine had written some songs with this girl that we knew just for fun, and she ended up getting a record deal with Warner Brothers, and we ended up getting hired to co-produce and did a lot of writing on that record. So I would say within this maybe 6-month period, just, went from it being a hobby to songs getting placed on records, and
Yeah, it must have been exciting. Was it like a whirlwind?
Yeah, it was something I never thought could actually happen. I didn't think that was a possibility for my life. I didn't think music was a possibility. I never even thought of it as a career or a potential career. So when it did happen, it was pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah. What was the, if you don't mind me asking, what was the name of this first hit that you got that went to number one?
The artist, his name is Aaron Benward, Benward, and the song was called Captured. Okay. And it was the first single off of his first solo album.
Wow, wonderful. So we got our first question of the night from Pam, actually. She must have heard your bio. She's asking what Dolly is like. Have you ever met Dolly in person? Have you ever worked with her? What's she like? She seems like a fun-loving, cool kind of person to be around.
She is. She's extremely smart. She's very witty. She's super witty and fun to be around. But she's also super smart and writes tons of songs.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that about her, and obviously she's a legend. I personally went to Dollywood several years ago, and I was just so impressed with it. I'm trying to think, I'm sure you partook in it, the challenge that she did, the Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn kind of thing. That was fun a couple months ago. I'm not sure if you were involved in that, but she definitely seems like she's staying on the cutting edge.
Yeah, I haven't worked. I was a senior VP of A&R for her management company for a period of about 4 years, but that was from 2007 to 2011. So it's been about 9 years since I've been in that inner circle over there.
Okay. Give us a sense of what was the first tune you learned, or what was the first thing that struck your fancy as a kid?
Well, I started listening to music through my dad's record collection. I would lay on the floor with his headphones. His headphones were like as big as his head. I would just lay on the floor as a little boy with my dad's headphones. And I remember I would just stare up at the ceiling listening to his records, and I just felt very mesmerized by the music and the songs. And also it made me feel like closer to my dad, because I felt like I understood a part of him more. And then when I started writing songs on my own, the first song I learned how to play on guitar was the song Every Rose Has Its Thorn by Poison.
Yeah, I love that song.
And the second song I learned how to play was Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen. Yeah, so those are the first ones.
Another classic, yeah, The Boss. Did you ever, do you play any instruments yourself?
I play guitar. I was never a great guitar player, but I was always decent enough to write songs and make my way around the guitar.
Yeah. Do you start, when you give birth to a song, do you start with the melody? Do you start with your guitar? Do you start with a metronome? How do you get started?
Well, for me personally, because I'm a manager today in the business and an executive type, so I haven't actually written songs on a serious level in, I would say, the last songs I wrote that got placed on records before I went into management was 2000. So it's literally been 20 years. But I wrote songs for, very intensely for about 10 years. And for me, I would always start off with a guitar part, and then I would write a melody and lyrics after. So it was always guitar first, melody, and then a lyric. But, everybody's got their own processes. Everybody does it differently.
Sure. We got another question for you from Brett. He's asking, what do you look for in an artist, either to manage them or to sign them? And I assume he just means in general terms.
I mean, if it's management, I would say that it would have to be an artist that was going to get a record deal or in a record deal. Most of the artists that we've ended up managing over the years have been artists that we've developed ourselves. So I'd say on the developing end of things, mainly look for artists that, and I don't really look for artists. I have people that send me artists to check out.
Sure.
But I would say that, things that excite me are the same kind of passion that I had, either growing up or, when I first got into the business and still today. So I'd say, passion level is something that excites me when it's high. Obviously a seed of potential, seed of talent. And then I think once I start working with an artist, a good listener, somebody who, I don't mind, artists asking questions and wondering why they should be doing certain things, when they should be doing them, or how they should be doing them. But it's hard to work with an artist that is in their head too much or overly questions things or, is overly not agreeable. Because it is always, it's a chemistry of a team working together. And it's very hard when an artist has blind spots, but they don't listen or they don't want to hear it, kind of thing.
Sure.
So I'd say a good listener, passionate, somebody who is enjoyable, because obviously when you're working with an artist, when I'm working with an artist, that's somebody that becomes fairly close in my life. Sometimes it almost becomes like family. So, and sometimes I'm working with, an artist for many, many, many years. So it's got to be somebody that's, feels like they could feel like family. There's like a real like camaraderie and friendship that establishes and somebody that, is enjoyable to talk to on a regular basis.
Yeah, because you're going to spend a lot of time with them, so that's reasonable. What are like the typical mistakes that you see younger artists make?
I would say, as far as mistakes go, I think it's listening to the wrong people, getting advice from people that haven't had successes recently in the business.
Okay.
And sometimes, sometimes those people that have had successes recently in the business may not even have that artist's best interest in mind. So it is tough. But I would say listening to the wrong people, being too precious about their songs, being too overly excited about, what they're creating. It's good to be excited, but it's also good to be grounded and not overly attached to what you're creating. Because if it's not good enough, and if it's not going to get you, if it's not going to get any doors to open for you, you don't want to hold on for dear life to a project that, over a course of a year or two, that's not going to produce or have at least a chance to produce results.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I think for some of our listeners or songwriters out there, I think what you said is very important, where I can tell you this is my 7th year, and when I first started, I was probably a little bit naive like most people, where you think it's just going to go viral in a second. And number one, I've learned you got to keep working hard. You got to keep being flexible and open. I used to, before I started taking songwriting lessons with Jai Josephs out in LA, thought, I'm inspired, here's the lyrics. And then you learn that inspiration is one thing, but then you got to edit them and you got to keep editing them. And I learned to be flexible and to let things go and say, okay, I will change that lyric. I think what you said is a lot of mistakes that young people make. They say, nope, this is it or this is my style. You got to always be trying. I try to review everything, and I think realizing you're not going to appeal to everybody is great, but you can't sit there if every single person tells you that your lyric structure or your imagery is whatever it is, you got to listen to them and try to get better at it.
Yeah. And I also think it's really important for artists, because most artists don't hear their songs clearly, and they think songs that are not strong enough are strong enough, or sometimes even songs that are strong enough they think are not strong enough. So I do find that the majority of the aspiring artists out there doesn't hear their songs clearly, and so I do think, and this is no easy feat, but I do think having somebody around the artist around you that has an exceptionally good ear for songs is something that is a huge, huge benefit. And I don't think a lot of artists have that. And I think that it's not necessarily a mistake, but it's something that it's just hard to go to the heights of any industry when you've never done it yourself and you've never had a success yourself, and there's no one helping lead you to that success.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. How do you suggest indie artists? I used to use AudioKite, got bought by Reverb, but other than doing some of these crowd reviews, or you meet some people and you have a few connections in the industry and you run it by people that are reputable, but is there another way? Is there some website, or how do you suggest people get their songs listened to and get constructive feedback before they put them out to the world?
Man, that's a tough question. I mean, obviously for the artists I work with, it's, we're always torturing songs with these artists, but outside of that, I would say that I always was a seeker of that. So when I was a songwriter and I was coming up, I would play my songs, to anyone who would listen. So, and I still do a lot of that to this day. But I think, when I was a songwriter, I was always trying to find somebody that I could tell had a pretty good ear for songs. And I don't think you're going to find the perfect person, but a decent person at it is better than a not decent person at it. So I think having somebody around you that doesn't like most of what you do is actually a really good thing. Because, if you write 200-300 songs, if you're a great songwriter, there's a chance maybe a few of those could be hits, but most of them are not hit songs, and that's for the best of songwriters. Sure. So if you're not a great songwriter, probably 300 songs is just exercising the craft of writing and, practice. And you're not, and you're writing great things, but you're probably not writing, super competitive songs. So I think having anyone around you who's at least decent at hearing songs, even if they're not the best yet, and how do you know that? I think somebody that dislikes most of what you do is probably somebody that has a better ear than others.
Yeah,
around you.
That's interesting. So we got another question for you. Peter's asking, how do you get people to take you seriously as a musician? How would you answer that for him?
For me, it's just about having original music. If I check out an artist and they have all cover songs, that doesn't seem like a real artist to me. So I think number one is having original music, original songs, and then number two, how good are those original songs? If somebody has really good songs, you take them as seriously as any major artist immediately, because they really could be. if somebody has average songs, and you view them as an artist that is still trying to figure it out. So I think for me, I base a lot of my view of an artist on how good are the songs, how strong are the vocals, what do their socials look like? Do they seem like they know what they're doing on socials? How to present themselves, how to put themselves together, whatever. So those are some of the ways.
Okay. When you listen to indie artists, do you cut them some slack knowing that they didn't record in their studio? Some of these bedroom artists or people that are clearly using loops, or even if they play it themselves, it's not mixed by a professional mixing engineer. They try to cut corners and do as much as they can themselves. How do you listen to that? Do you listen for potential? Do you listen to and say, oh, no, it's not studio quality, and just move on?
To me, studio quality at that level, before somebody has a record deal, studio quality, at least for me, for what I do, not saying to put stuff out and try to sell it, but independently, but for what am I listening for? I really could care less about studio quality. I've gotten songs that were just an acoustic guitar and vocal, and you could tell the song felt special. So to me, the recording doesn't matter at all. There's an artist recently that was sent, actually it was last year, was sent to me from South Africa, and she's like unbelievable. But she records everything on her cell phone. She makes these little beats on her cell phone and records right into her cell phone, and it's really good. You can catch the vision of what it could be with a great producer. And I can hear where she's lacking in her writing and where she's strong. So to me, the production really doesn't matter when you're, until you're out there on the radio selling records, that kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. Do you think it's important for artists to have a backup plan, whether they're indie, whether they're pros?
I never had a backup plan. Most of the successful people in the business I know did not have backup plans. I would say better than a backup plan to me, because a backup plan feels like it lacks a lot of confidence. So to me, it's not really about a backup plan. To me, it's an open plan. So if I loved sports, I have to be comfortable with if a job opens up and it is working, for a sports team, but it's filing paperwork, that could actually lead me to, over the course of years and hard work, a decent position within a sports company.
Sure.
Maybe I dreamed of being on the field. Maybe I dreamed of being this famous, sports player. But to me, when I was young, I dreamed about being a rock star, and I was in bands, and I was a singer in bands, and then all of a sudden, this door cracked open, and it was me being a songwriter. And my songs were getting placed with other artists. So that really wasn't my dream. My dream was to be the rock star. But the second the door cracked open, I was excited and I went with it. And then, once I got into the business a little bit, I felt the pull really to be more on the management side, working with producers and artists, and trying to find talent that I believed was higher level talent than even myself. So I think just instead of a backup plan, I would say if you go into any industry that's all industries are vast and wide. So, if you say, I love cars, well, I don't know, maybe you work one day for a company that makes tires for cars. You're always going to land somewhere within your dream. But I think instead of a backup plan, maybe having an open plan.
Yeah, that makes total sense. What suggestions do you give artists about touring? Is it essential if they're smaller artists? Do you recommend they focus on their songwriting before they start touring, or do you tell them you have to? It's the only way to make money.
Well, from my viewpoint, managing artists, I mean, I know. To me, touring is brutal, so, even when I do tour runs with artists I manage, when they're nice tours and we have tour buses, and even when they're arena tours, they are still very grueling and exhausting. So touring is a tremendous amount of work. It's exhausting. It is massively not glamorous, and it's very expensive to tour. So, I anytime I'm working with an artist, if it's an artist that doesn't have a record deal yet, it's always focusing on songs and playing local, regionally. I don't mind an artist regionally traveling, 5-6 hours to a show, outside of their home. To me, that's fine. But I think, I do know some artists that literally, I know one artist that literally lives in a van, and they have no home, and they make $80,000 to $100,000 a year doing it. All they do all day long is book and email and try to book their own shows, and then they just drive to the next destination, and they map out their route, so they're always calling ahead on the route trying to book stuff.
Yeah.
So to me that's pretty brutal, and I don't think that's a really sustainable way to do it. So for me, everything is about trying to get the right product to get behind first.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, that definitely sounds brutal. Tell us a little bit about one of the things a lot of songwriters worry about are scams, and you alluded to it earlier, but any suggestions, any scams you know of that you want to warn us about, or any red flags we should be aware about?
Are you talking about recording and stuff?
Yeah, just scams in general, from recording, from record deals, from marketing things, Spotify listeners, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Anything you want to share with us?
I don't know. It's tough. At a certain point, you're probably eventually going to have to spend $1 on something. Not saying that everybody in history has, but, you're going to have to put yourself out there in some way, and on some level, unless you have a home studio and can just kind of keep cranking out tunes. But I think a lot of what I see is that stuff around recording. Mm-hmm. And I really don't. I'm sure there's actual real scams out there, but I don't really view a whole lot as a scam. I just view a whole lot as maybe people overselling themselves, or people selling gold and delivering silver. People that are not as good as really what they should be, and they're desperately trying to make a living too. And so I think if you're an artist, most of what I see it around is recording. That's just personally where I've seen it the most. And so I think, when you're going into record with somebody, if you're going to spend $1 on it, which you don't need to, but if you are going to spend $1 on it, sometimes you need to, but you don't always need to. But if you're going to spend $1 on it, I think, some questions are, what is this producer's track record? Are they truly a producer? Is this an engineer, or is this really a producer who knows songs and knows how to get a sound and knows how to make you sound great?
Sure.
What's their track record? What's the last real success they've had? What's the last hit song that they've been a part of? If it's 10 years ago, if you're a betting person, you're betting that this is going to be the first time in 10 years that they produce something that succeeds. And that's a pretty big bet because they're producing songs probably weekly. So I think the track record, how current is it? I mean, have they done something that had success in the last year or two? I think that's a fairly important question. And this is an impossible one, but, you do want to try as hard as possible to understand where is this person coming from as far as their thought process and their heart towards you. It's, that's very hard to see. Sure. Some people are great actors, but, if you've got somebody who's had a success in the last year or two, a real success in the business, and they actually really care about you, like you might have you might be in a good situation. But I think a lot of times, I got a letter years ago from a girl that was so excited, and she's like, I finally pulled it off, and I went in the studio with Taylor Swift's bass player, and as soon as I read that, I was like, man, this is probably not going to be great, because why are you calling them a bass player? Like, why are you not saying I went in with Taylor Swift's songwriters or Taylor Swift's producer? It's kind of like hiring an electrician to do my plumbing work,
sure,
in the house, so, if you're spending a lot of money on somebody who's a bass player, I don't care if they're Taylor Swift's bass player, they can get you great sounding bass on your record, but they're probably not going to help you get the best songs and great production. So I think, you really need to ask deeply, like, what are you paying for? How much are you paying? And what is the track record and the experience and the know-how and the heart of who you're actually working with? And those are very tough questions to answer when you don't fully know what you're doing. But I think those are the things that I look for. And I would also say one other thing, that when it comes to recording, a lot of times, people look at when you do meet a real producer that's done something exciting in the last few years, like a discography does not mean that they are consistently great at what they do. And I use this analogy sometimes, but you could take any basketball player in the NBA. You could take the worst bench player in the NBA. And if they've played enough games over enough years, you can compile a highlight reel that would look very exciting on that player and put it up on YouTube. That doesn't mean that they're a good player. So there's tons of people that land on major records, and they might have song number 7 on the Demi Lovato record, or they might have song number 7 or 6 or 5 on the Taylor Swift record. There could be 3 or 4 other writers on that song. They may not have contributed a lot to it, and the song may not even be that great. That could be one of those songs on the record that you would skip over. Well, if you have songs as an up-and-coming artist that people want to skip over, you're not going to get attention from bigger people in the business. So there's just a lot of room for blind spots, and I think there's a tremendous amount of people in the business that really are maybe desperate or pretty eager, need to make a living, and I think there's just a lot of people out there that maybe oversell themselves or are not quite as great as it seems, as far as talent goes, and talent and experience.
I'll tell you what, I think what you just said, the advice you gave, I think is phenomenal. I love see what they've done recently. I love everything you just said. And to any songwriters out there listening, I would re-listen to this podcast when it gets out there, because you're getting a bunch of free advice from someone who clearly knows what he's doing. And I just want to thank you again for being on the show, because your advice is awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Before I forget here, we got another 5-6 minutes, but can you give us whatever contact information you want, your website, if people want to check out your stuff, check out your company, reach out to you, your socials, whatever information you want to give, if you can give that to us now, please.
I would just say, if anybody wants to check anything, you could put links to some of the different companies I'm involved with on the episode somewhere, on the page or whatever. But I generally don't have artists talk to me directly. There's usually people that are around me that find artists. So,
sure.
I'm not opposed to a message, of course, but I would say that, looking me up online or one of the companies would be fine.
Okay. If you don't mind a personal question here, do you have any hidden superpowers or anything you want to confess to us on the air?
No, I wish I had a superpower. I'm far from a superpower. But I would say that, I have, over the last 12, 13 years, really grown my relationship with God. And I would say that, through prayer and reading the Bible, those are things that I think, I don't want to say have given me power, but they've definitely given me clarity when I needed it most. I feel like a lot of protection. And I do feel like, the guidance has been a lot more clear, over the last 12, 13 years than it was my first 10 years in the business when I didn't know God at all. So I have noticed a pretty big difference in my life on that end.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And that's the kind of strength that you can always tap into anytime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
Any strange compliments anyone's ever given you, whether it's a song, whether it's your business, anything?
Strange compliment. Not really. I don't think so. Not that I could think of.
Okay. How about, can you share with us what you were like in high school?
Very quiet. I was 100% into music. All I cared about was music. All I cared about was writing songs. All I cared about was listening to my favorite bands and artists. I didn't enjoy school that much. I knew everybody in school, and I was pretty much cool with everybody in school, but I didn't have a lot of close friends because I pretty much would, every single day after school, I would just sit in my bedroom and write songs. Pretty much every single day. I mean, I definitely had moments where I would go play hockey with some friends, but for the most part, I mean, I would say 9.9 out of 10 days when I was in high school, I was in my bedroom after school all through the night writing really
Yeah. Do you have any go-to comfort food? Anything that that you crave sometimes?
Yeah.
Or?
I would say anything with the word food would be my craving. Yeah, I mean, I wish I was a little bit more picky than I am.
Okay. If you have any cool trips planned in the next year, once this virus stuff starts going away?
Yeah. I mean, I was supposed to do a few trips for tours. And then I had an artist that was supposed to play a big radio conference in Orlando, but that got canceled. Another artist I work with was going to be on an award show in Nashville, a big award show, and that got canceled. That was the third week of May. So really the next thing that really is on the books, I mean, I have an artist that's starting a pretty big tour in September, so I'm sure I'll be traveling with that a bit. But next January, one of my artists is on one of those cruises, where people pay and they get to have artists perform for them. So
sure.
I've actually never been on a cruise before, and I've traveled tons, but I've never been on a cruise, and my wife has never been on a cruise. So, and our whole management staff is coming. So that should be a pretty fun time.
Yeah, that's wonderful. what's the best movie you've seen in the last year? Like, what comes to mind?
Well, this answer is going to show you that I almost never watch TV or movies. So I know I've seen a couple of good ones in the last year. I really don't watch a lot of movies, and I don't watch a lot of TV shows. So sorry, it's such a boring answer.
It's okay, Jason.
I mean, I'm usually working nonstop. So.
Well, that's why you're so successful and you've gotten to where you are. I mean, there's nothing wrong with work, man.
Yeah.
All right, Jason. I want to thank you for being on the show tonight. Love to have you on again anytime, or any of your artists. If anybody wants to be on the Songwriter Show, we'd love to have them.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I want to thank everyone for listening tonight. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. If anybody out there wants to be on the Songwriter Show, I invite you to please just reach out and email me. I hope everyone's unique story gets heard around the world. My name is Sarantos, and please join me every Tuesday night to hear other amazing artists share their fascinating behind-the-scenes stories right here at the Songwriter Show. And tonight, I'm going to leave you with a song of mine called Why Ask Why. This song ultimately is about perseverance and not knowing when that lucky break is coming. Does it matter, though? Living life every day, wearing a smile, and doing what you love doing, especially with music, is the goal. Why? Why ask why? So many questions run through our minds on a daily basis, and that's what this song is about. So I hope you enjoy it. I love you all. Thank you for tuning in again, and thanks again to Jason for being on our show tonight. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome, Jason. Have a great night.
I've learned in my life, sometimes you just never ever know why. When you least expect to go on a ride, all this crap happens and you get hit from the blind side. We got Facebook and all the opinions on what way to ride. So many said they changed the world. God knows if they've tried. Too many things to question those that deny. What's the truth and what is a lie? Why ask why we can't change the world? Why ask why we never get the girl? Why ask why when we still try? Oh, why ask why? Why ask why? And love and tranquility. Where there's trouble in the Middle East, they say it's what we are fed. But is it really that way? But I'll tell you, the one thing I've learned in my life, sometimes you just never ever know why. When you least expect to go on a ride,
Thank you for listening to The Songwriter Show. To keep the momentum going, head over to www.songwritershow.com and join our free music community of artists, songwriters, and producers. That's www.songwritershow.com.
Thank you for choosing Pesmo Radio.